Hello, everyone. This week's parsha is Parshat Vayelech, a very short parsha followed by Parshat Hazinu B'Zot Barucha, the last three parshot in the Torah, and the Ramban is going to teach us something very instrumental at the end of the Torah over here, where he's going to comment on the order of things occurring. What is going on in this week's parsha? Now, if we take a quick look throughout Sefer Vayelech, we get to the end of the parsha, Parak Lamed Aleph, within the last couple of psukim before Shirat Ha'azinu, which we know is obviously one of the few shirot, the few songs that are written in the Torah. And within that shir, we're going to be discussing a lot more of the poetry within it, but the Ramban says something very interesting with regard to when was this written, meaning that the order that the psukim describe everything, it's kind of strange. It's the end of the Torah, but the way things are wrapped up, the Ramban makes a couple of comments. So first, we're just going to read the pasuk the Ramban comments on. The Ramban says, on the pasuk, al sefer ad tumam, the sefer until its end. Safari, I'll translate that as that the Torah will be written, and wow, okay, wrong parak, but the Safari is going to translate it pretty much saying that until its completion, and at the end of the sefer Torah, this is what's being written. Now, what's important over here is just to realize that what does this really mean? When is this occurring? At one point in time, are we wrapping this up? So ad tumam, Safari says until the very end. So just have to confirm that. We're going to look at the Ramban over here on the side. I have to copy and paste it on this document. And the next minute or so, we're going to wrap it up quickly. This demands a little bit more time, though here is what we can do with this time. So the Ramban says, in the beginning, Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the Torah, obviously, and the Ramban goes through psukim, going through in order sequentially how this is going to occur. And the key things to look out for as we read through, we're not going to read through the entire thing, is the words of Acharei Chen and Acharei Zot. And the Ramban is going to go through things sequentially. So these words are keying us into the next step, so to speak. So this is the first step of Moshe finishing writing everything. And then the Ramban is going to explain what happens next in the narrative. Acharei Chen, Moshe Rabbeinu responds and commands the nation, so to speak, to listen to the Shira Hazot, obviously referring to Shira Hazinu. Now, there's previous psukim also described that the Shira goes with the Sefer Torah and it's included in the Sefer Torah. And we know the Sefer Torah is placed on the side. And so Dvarim Lamed Aleph, the first pasuk over there, is going to tell us that this Sefer Torah is being placed next to the Aron. After Moshe Rabbeinu goes through everything, he's within his 120th year. Okay, so that's how the parsha begins. Now the Ramban moves on to the next step in which he says that after Moshe Rabbeinu wrote all this Torah, the Ramban is going through the order now. Then he commands the Kohanim to take the Sefer Torah and then now the Shira that it's written, it's included in the Sefer Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu commands the Kohanim to put it next to the Aron. This is a huge principle that nothing can be added to the Torah. This is the end. We have separate segments of Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, but within the holiest of holiest, the Sefer Torah, this is it. And we will read it in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, by being Atzeret, Simchas Torah, the end of the Torah. Though in the beginning part over here, this important principle is realized, and Ramban quotes Ibn Ezra as well, that this is the very last words of the Torah that are occurring, nothing more is being added. Now the Ramban quotes the Ibn Ezra saying that what about the order of the parashah? It's kind of strange. So the brach comes after this, but we say the Sefer Torah ad tumam. So we first describe the shira after we say that it's been completed. Interesting. So there's much more to be discussed, obviously. But the next step the Ramban writes is ki acharei shekatav hashira. Very much so. Important to look out for the keywords of acharei. The Ramban writes over there. After this, then Moshe taught the rest of Bnei Israel, each all of them the words of the song, as perhaps it was taught by heart. Bnei Israel to be able to commit it to their hearts, to be able to know the song of Shir Tazinu, very important song. And then now, after the song was being told over to Bnei Israel, they knew it. Then the Kohanim were the ones who were able to take the Sefer Torah that was completed after Bnei Israel knew the song and place it next to the Aron. And after that, they were one more time commanded to gather one more time. And because the end of the Torah, so to speak, Bnei Israel already knew the song. I think this is what the Ramban is telling us, that Bnei Israel was taught the song, so to speak, followed by Moshe Rabbeinu writing it down and, so to speak, sealing the Torah, meaning that the Torah is written down, everything is done, it's placed next to the Aron. And what the Ramban tells us is that the order is completely the way it's written in the Torah, that even though it's completed already, and we read in Parshat Hazinu, no, Shir Hazinu, Bnei Israel was already taught that, and it was already known to them, and it was wrapped up, so to speak. The Torah was put next to Aaron with the Shir Hazinu in it. Shir Hazinu is next week's parsha. That's Bnei Israel, and Moshe is reading it to Bnei Israel. That's what the Ramban explains. after they were gathered up, all of them gathered together. And there we go. And that is how the Ramban explains what's going on with this end of the parshiot of the Torah. After they were all gathered together, so it's much more to be discussed. I'm not sure I'm entirely correct on this. I'll take some more looking into the Ramban over Shabbat. Though for now, this is what seems to be the Ramban's theory. Very famous principle. We discussed this all the way back. Parsha Truma Tetzav, when the Mishnah was created after Chet Egel, when was the tzivui to build the Beit HaMikdash given, so to speak. So the Ramban focuses very much early in the Torah about Ein Muktam Umuchar b'Torah. Is that really true? Always do we resort to this explanation of saying the Torah is not written purely in a chronological order. So here the Ramban explains that there is a sense to the chronological order that's listed out in the Torah, and that the Torah was sealed. But that being said, the narrative continues with the explaining of the Shira and being sung to Bnei Yisrael and being sung together with Bnei Yisrael through Moshe. Everyone have a great Shabbos. We will pick up next week, hopefully, as well. Shabbat Shalom.